What is going on, y'all? As usual, Site Perspectives, GeoFucks, and I want to talk about what some people are calling the nonprofit industrial complex. Okay? And information will be in the description box below about the nonprofit industrial complex. So, I'm thinking about my years of experiences. I've worked for numerous nonprofit organizations, 501c3s, some have 527s where they're able to do political work, but of course it has to be nonpartisan, and it's more so political education, electoral education, ballot initiatives. You can't sway anyone to a specific political party, but obviously there are ballot initiatives, ideologies that are, it's kind of obvious that you're talking about one or another party. But anyways, I've had experience doing that and working in the nonprofit world for, like I said, I've been specifically doing nonprofit work like hardcore since 2014. So, in fact, October 2014 was the first time I got hired in full-time with a nonprofit. So, I've got years under my belt. So, what I'm saying is, in my area, in my hometown, there's so many nonprofits. I mean, in a 5-mile radius, you probably got over 10, 20 nonprofits. And that's just keeping it real. And it's so, with that being said, a lot of your job opportunities are going to be with nonprofits. So, the reason many people are calling it the nonprofit industrial complex is the fact that you have all of these nonprofits, churches, religious organizations. They don't pay taxes. They're tax exempt. Millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars are funneled into these nonprofits, and keep in mind, they're tax exempt. They don't pay taxes. Okay? And when you donate to a nonprofit, you can write that off on your taxes too. So, because they're tax exempt, they have a 501c3 status. Again, information will be in the description box below. So millions and hundreds of millions of dollars are funneled into these nonprofits. And a lot of times nonprofits are created by so-called philanthropists. And the reason why I say so-called philanthropists is because, in my opinion, there is no ethical way for you to be a billionaire. And in many cases, there's no ethical way for you to be a multimillionaire either. Because somewhere down the line, you're exploiting others and taking advantage of others, which is why you're able to accumulate so much wealth, because you're literally hoarding it. And 9 times out of 10, you're not paying people their fair share, hence why you're able to accumulate so much money. It is what it is. And a lot of these so-called philanthropists will funnel money into nonprofits so they can avoid paying taxes. Let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it real. Okay? And it's not to say that they're not doing good things in society, in the neighborhoods, in the communities that they're serving. Because there are people who work for these nonprofits that go beyond the call of duty. That, there's grant dollars and funding that go to supporting people opening business, buying homes, ending homelessness, so many things, education, helping people get careers and trainings. So many things are funded through nonprofits. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but don't you think it's odd? You have all of these nonprofits tasked with doing all of these so-called humanitarian-based efforts, yet when you look at these communities, not much has really changed. People are still living in poverty. People are still homeless. People still have high crime rates. People are suffering. Yet, you have all of these nonprofits that are all tasked with doing all of these different social justice, community-based, humanitarian-based efforts. But yet, what's really changing here? And then a lot of times, I'm going to keep it real, you have the executive directors or the CEOs of these nonprofits. They don't even live in the community or come from the community that they're serving. So that in itself is a setup for disaster, because you know nothing about this community. That's just it. So you're not going to really be able to better serve a community that you have no relation to. You don't live here. You're not from here. And you know I'm about to go there. A lot of times with these nonprofits, not only do they not live here, or the executive director or the CEO doesn't live here and isn't from here, but they don't look like any of the people that's in the community either. Okay, or the people that they're supposed to be directly serving. So that also is a bit red flag. And then again, when you look at I have seen grants. I mean, grants are coming in, $1 million grants. Okay, that's what I mean by there's millions and hundreds of millions of dollars being funneled into a lot of these nonprofits. Now, keep in mind, every nonprofit does not get that amount of money. Okay, there are, very beginning nonprofits that they're applying for a few thousand, if that. Right. And then there's nonprofits that have 100,000 and up. And then there's nonprofits that's getting millions. Okay. So, yeah. And keep in mind, like, depending on what nonprofit, if it's a national organization, how they're funded, how long they've been around, who's in leadership, etc., you will see the pay discrepancies as well. Because for the most part, again, I only had one job that paid a quote unquote decent salary, and that was 4 years ago when I was making $60,000 a year. Okay, but again, when you include the amount of work that I have to do and all of the gas and traveling and maintenance on my car and the hours that I was working, I still wasn't being compensated fairly, because on average I was working 60 hours a week and literally had to drive all over the state of Michigan. So still wasn't really being adequately compensated, because I was working an additional 20 hours a week, an additional 80 hours a month. So you think about that typical 160 a month of hours of work if you're working 40 hours a week. So if you're working an additional 80, that 140 turns into what? 240. I was working 240 hours a week. A month, I should say. A month. So really wasn't being compensated fairly even then. I was basically, again, being exploited, wage theft, and losing 20 hours of pay every week, and then mind you, I'm driving all over the state on my gas, because we didn't have gas mileage. We didn't get gas mileage reimbursement. So keep that in mind. But that was one of the only jobs I've ever had with a nonprofit where I was actually making what I would consider a decent living, right? $60,000 in 2018. So here I am today doing basically typical same work. I don't have to drive all over the state of Michigan, but I do drive all over my county and my city because I am the outreach person. So, and yet I'm getting paid $40,000 before taxes and deductions, and then after taxes and deductions, like I said, it's $28,600 something, and $646 and some change. But yet the nonprofit is getting millions of dollars in grants, but yet you can't afford to pay your employees a quality living. And again, all of these nonprofits have similar goals. Like, they're trying to fight homelessness. They're trying to create affordable housing, homeowner education. You got some nonprofits that are focused on, sexual education, reproductive health, prevention of communicable diseases, STIs, STDs, etc. You've got nonprofits that have various different lenses and focuses and initiatives. And like I said, in my area, in a 5-mile radius, there's probably 10 to 20 different nonprofits. And many of them overlap because they're all doing the same work, yet homelessness is at an all-time high. We do not have affordable housing. People are still living in poverty. And it's just like, what is the purpose of these nonprofits? And a lot of times you will see they just keep racking up money, but things are not actually changing. And they're not, and then when there are positives, and I'm not saying that there aren't successes, I'm not saying that there aren't good things happening, but they're so incremental and minute that it's not a true ripple effect. Like, for you to have this many nonprofits in this 5-mile radius, you should have way more results. And I'm just keeping it real. And it just goes to show you money is being allocated, but is it being allocated correctly? And is it really focusing on the issue at hand? And then two, how can you say that you are a pillar in the community when you are paying poverty wages to people who live in the community? Because you will notice a lot of people who work at the nonprofits, depending on the organization and location, they're from the community. They live in the community. They're from the community. They know the people. They know the residents. Yet we tend to be the lowest paid employees at these agencies, at these organizations. And yet the person making all the money doesn't come from here, doesn't live here, doesn't really relate to the population that they're serving, doesn't look like the population that they're serving, yet they're making all of the money. And a lot of times, and I'm not trying to knock it, but a lot of times the higher up you go, the less amount of work you actually have to do, because you're able to put your responsibilities on the people that work beneath you. And then oftentimes you're taking credit for what other people are doing. You know, I'm telling it like it is. And then they sit up and give you a gift card instead of giving you a real pay raise. They giving you a gift card like you 5 and 10 years old and it's your birthday, instead of giving you a solid living wage, a quality, decent salary so you can take care of yourself and your family and thrive and prosper. No, we're going to give you a gift card. So anyways, that's just one of the many examples that I can go on and on and on about the the nonprofit industrial complex, because again, I don't really get the point in this. And then two, with all the tax dollars that all of us are contributing to, we really shouldn't need nonprofits, because we're paying so much in taxes that our government should be allocating that money correctly so it actually benefits the taxpayers. It actually benefits our cities, our neighborhoods, our villages, our townships, our states, our country, our world. It should make it, our tax dollars should be able to make sure that we have affordable housing, that we have homeowner education, that we have quality health care. But no, we are being told that we have to lean on religious organizations and nonprofits because somehow the tax dollars that we're all contributing to isn't enough. So now we have to, the philanthropists, the rich and the wealthy, who, again, more often than not, create the nonprofit so they can funnel money back to themselves to avoid paying taxes. I'm just keeping it real. Anyways, information is in the description box below. And pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention. All right, I'm out.